Welcome to Let's Talk. I'm Salley Gibney. Our show today is The Next Chapter, and my guest is my very dear friend, Annie Schlessinger. Welcome, Annie. I'm so glad you're here.
It is so nice to be back with you.
Oh, I know. Could you share with our audience a little bit about you?
I'm trying to think back in the many years that I've been in this area. Originally, I was working for Dorset Nursing and probably know a lot of the people because of that, as a medical social worker. It was unusual after I got married in my 50s, and I went to New York City, and I got, that's when I got my master's and changed careers. So it was a late life change for me.
Now, what had you done prior to that?
I was artist person before that, and raising two kids and a single mother. So that was
that was a lot.
That was a lot, yeah. But one of the interesting points as to why I changed careers at that time was really because art got so solitary for me, and I really wanted to do something that had service connected to it.
And people.
Yeah, and people. And so medical social work, that was certainly fulfilled that.
Oh, well, you were so gifted at that. I mean, so you worked in the area.
Worked at Dorset Nursing for many years. I had worked at Rutland. I also worked at Manchester Home Health. So I was really all around.
Yeah.
Often when I make the drive from like Dorset to Middletown Springs, I can look at the houses all along the way and say, I have been in almost every one of these
isn't
houses.
it? Yeah. And everybody knows you.
That's right.
Everybody knows you. And such a dear and gentle person, and such a caring person.
Thank you.
Perfect fit for you.
Yeah.
Perfect fit for you.
Well, I love doing it, but ultimately retired because my husband needed some care. He was 19 years older than I was, and he really wanted me around more.
Yeah, a very charming guy, I have to tell you.
Very charming guy.
Yes, but I'm sure he really wanted his Annie around.
That's right. Big personality. Yes.
Yes. But so you retired.
So I retired, and then I actually started doing work with you.
That was so much fun. Now, how did you get involved with filming and the computer and all that kind of thing?
You know, it really goes back to my childhood. My dad had an 8mm camera and had a lot of footage of me as a little girl and my sister, and I really got the bug wanting to use that footage. And so that's really then what took me into, buying a computer that would accommodate video editing applications, and taking a little course on it, and then I sort of started buying camcorders and following you around.
Well, first I think it was Sally Ann's wedding.
Oh, that's right.
Absolutely. Yeah. It was absolutely fabulous. You were, of course, a guest at the shower, so you photographed the shower, and then you came with us to get the wedding gown.
Yes, it was so fun.
And then the wedding and the reception, and you put it all together so beautifully. And I think that's when I said, Annie, would you ever come and film with me for my shows?
Right. Yeah.
And you were just so generous and so wonderful about it. We had such a good time, didn't we?
We did, going everywhere. To Peru, to Dorset, to everywhere.
Yeah. We did the horse show, remember?
That's right.
And we also went to Consider Bardwell Farm. And all this wonderful shows. Yeah. And of course, I was spoiled rotten because you would do all that, the filming and the editing and whatever, and we would just put it on the show, and it was great.
Right, and
And so it was a lot of fun.
And so fun for me also, and certainly in terms of honing my skills in that field. So.
And then life kind of dealt you a couple of blows, didn't it?
It absolutely did. Then it sort of moved into my husband Alvin, who was 19 years older than I, beginning to really show signs that something was not right in his life. And that really consumed me for a good 8 years.
Yeah.
And, he was not an easy personality. And so the first part, when he started knowing that something was wrong cognitively, he ultimately had a diagnosis of Alzheimer's. And, for someone who, he had been a Supreme Court Justice in New York.
Yeah.
So he was a guy who depended a lot on his cognitive abilities.
Absolutely.
And really resisted.
Yeah. And a very charming guy, and just very social.
Yeah, and luckily he, those were there were parts of his personality that he kept till the very end, and that charming. Thank God he was funny. He was so funny, and loved people, loved women. How many women did he ask to marry him in the end?
I'm sure everyone he met.
Exactly. Luckily, we all had a sense of humor about it. But anyway, it was an experience that certainly has changed my life. And oddly enough, and I have said this before, when I was working for Dorset Nursing, one of the first things I did was have a caregiver support group. When the women would sit there and tell me about their husbands, and a lot of them had dementia, it never really sort of got me in the heart as to how complex their life had become. And I don't think they were able to really articulate how complex their life had become. And because I hadn't been through it myself too, I didn't quite.
And I'm sure in your wildest dreams you never really expected it would happen to you.
That's right. But as I mentioned, during the time that Alvin was ill, I actually put together a book about caregiving. And it really was my experience, very personal.
It's a beautiful, beautiful book. It's called Walking the Tightrope.
A caregiver's struggle with balance. That's right.
And it's a beautiful, beautiful book.
And I really did it because I wanted to show how multifaceted the job was and give other people a chance then to just even be able to articulate some of the issues that I
And to
had.
realize they're not alone.
Exactly.
That others have gone through it.
And the issue of caregiving in your home is a very isolating one.
Absolutely.
And with Alzheimer's too, there are very few skilled nursing needs. So it's not like you have a whole staff of nurses coming in from visiting nurse, or you're seeing the doctor often. It's really you.
It's you.
And as I said to my friend Dot Danforth yesterday, we were talking about it. She also went through the same experience. She was a neighbor of mine, and I really didn't know her until we started doing this together, caregiving, and we became fast friends. And
I'll bet you did. That connection.
That's right.
So
and
amazing.
I couldn't advocate more for, if you're isolated in your home with a husband and you're caring for him, find someone else who is doing the same thing, because it is just unbelievable to have them at the end of the telephone to laugh with.
Yeah.
I mean,
and you hesitate to say some of these things to someone who's not in the situation.
Absolutely.
But you have to laugh. You have to have
keeping a sense of humor is so important. And a whole half of this book is dedicated to things that sustain for the caregiver. And one of the things that I talked about was, going and watching the movie It's Complicated with Meryl Streep and how funny it was, but with sort of very good friends, and just finding it, how wonderful to laugh, laugh with someone else.
And also, I think, to be able to cry with someone too.
Absolutely.
Because it isn't always just the laughter, but it's also, there are times when you just want to cry and you don't want to burden anyone with it, but someone who understands.
And also, I did not have children with my husband, but often if you have children, they don't want to hear it. I mean, they're suffering in their own way of seeing Papa decline.
Exactly.
And so they can't hold your grief.
Exactly. And you don't want to put it on them.
Exactly.
So it's very isolating.
Right.
Very isolating. I remember when I did the show on Alzheimer's, Dr. Santulli came from Dartmouth. And talk about how you shared that with him.
Well, I brought my book with him to show it to him. And he took it home, and then he wrote me a little thing that just said, this is wonderful. And he ultimately was kind enough to let me use his quote on the back of my book, and that was terrific. And he was such a personal doctor.
Oh, he's the director of the Alzheimer's program at Dartmouth. So he's an amazing man.
Right. So that was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then the second half of my life, caregiving Alvin, I was thrown another curveball. 2 years before he died, actually, I just started feeling unusually tired.
And I'll bet you thought in the beginning it was because of what you were going through.
I went to the doctor just for my general checkup, and he said, I think it's just because you're caregiving and it's exhausting, And but he said, well, we haven't done blood work for a long time, so let's do that. Well, that was a Friday. By Monday morning, I get the phone call that says, you need to go down to the cancer center. And I didn't even know what it was about at that point, and neither did they, but they did give me a transfusion right away. My blood level was so low.
Oh, wow.
And of course I felt instantly better. That's what a transfusion does for you at that time.
Really?
And then it went on to the testing and a bone marrow test, and it ended up that I had an early stage of leukemia.
Wow.
Called myelodysplastic syndrome. And what did I know about
Oh
any of
gosh.
this? Nothing,
Yeah.
nothing. Yeah.
And here you are dealing with this with your husband not even being able to really understand what's going on.
Exactly. I mean, his feeling at that point is, I want to go with you. But of course, he couldn't understand what was happening.
Yeah.
And so I would tell him sort of what happened, and and he couldn't remember it. So it was really trying to work around him and kind of calm him down.
And that's an additional stress which you didn't need because you were dealing with this yourself.
So the long and the short of it was like 6 months of sort of having chemotherapy down in Bennington at the chemo center. And then finding that it really wasn't effective. And then I got sent to Dana-Farber in Boston, and then got transferred to my wonderful doctor that I have, Dr. Anton. And we were talking seriously about a stem cell transplant at that point. And the stem cell transplant itself is a pretty easy procedure. It's 3 days in the hospital.
Sort of scary to hear, even thinking about it. It's scary.
3 days in the hospital having heavy chemotherapy and then having a transfusion of all of these little stem cells.
These new little babies coming into your body.
Exactly.
Wow.
But the complicating factor of it is what you're doing really is eradicating your own immune system and then letting a new one grow.
To build a new one.
And so you're kind of you're baby age when you get out of there.
Wow.
And they actually start your age from when you have the transplant, the transfusion.
So how old are you now?
I am a year and a half.
Wow.
And during that first year, they want you to be totally isolated in your home. No sort of contamination at all. You have to totally clean your house from top to bottom. You have to, get rid of all the lizards. You have to take out the house plants. They don't want dust mites. In other words,
all this kind of
all the things that normally could infect someone.
Yeah. So you were dealing with all of this. Now I know you are going to be doing a show.
Yeah.
And it's called The Next Chapter. And you're going to be going in depth about these different things.
That's right.
And the hope that goes with what you've gone through, the whole kind of so I don't want to give away too much of your story. But so how did you come about thinking, I want to share this with other people. I want to help other people.
It really came out of, after sort of 6 months of recovering, I started feeling much better. And I really wanted, at that point, I was thinking fundraisers. Because Dana-Farber had been so great to me, and also Neighbor to Neighbor, our local organization.
Which is wonderful. Now they did your shopping and all the things
They
that
did
you
all
needed?
of my shopping. The two organizations, Neighbor to Neighbor and Pharmacy Northshire, who would deliver my meds to me, which was so great. But anyway, I was thinking how to give back, and I started...
which is just part of who you are anyway.
I started thinking about doing a show for them, a style show called Elder Glam, where I had elder women sort of doing a style show.
Which is kind of what we did for Neighbor to Neighbor.
That's exactly what we did.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking about sort of how our culture treats our elders, or how they portray them, and feeling that something is really missing in the way they look at elders, and they're missing, and it's affected elders, and they're missing, that place in our hearts that remains sort of 30 years old forever and ever.
Absolutely.
And
that child inside that never goes away.
The child inside. And I started thinking, in this show, that's what I want to remind women of. Is who they are, They're not their illness. They're not their aging body.
Right.
Who were they?
There's something, we all have that special little person inside.
And I have to tell a story that I remembered and really sort of pushed me forward. I don't know if you knew Shotzi Lefebvre in Dorset.
I've heard of her. I never knew her.
She was one of my clients in my first caregiver support group. And anyway, I used to see her at Prospect Rehab when she was 90, in her 90, I think she was getting close to 95. And she'd be on this little machine that you'd go like this. She would have her bracelets from here up to here, rings on every finger. She looked so terrific. And I would look at her and I go, I can't believe
I want to be like you.
Exactly, that she thought to get dressed like that, to come into Prospect Rehab and exercise. And I thought, what a gal she is, you know? That's what I want to remind people of.
Of course, and which is really, now what is it, tell me, now, so you're going to be doing the show and it's going to be called The Next Chapter.
It's going to be called The Next Chapter because I feel like I'm in the next chapter now. I'm sort of waiting for this next chapter to kind of evolve for me. And I feel like there are so many topics that are being talked about privately at luncheons and with my peers.
Absolutely.
But that are not really talked about as a culture.
That's one. Now, how do you go about doing this? I mean, what is the process for someone to come down here to GNAT-TV and become a producer of a show? Start from when you let them know you wanted to do it.
Okay, I didn't really let them know I was going to do it until about 2 days ago. But anyway, when I was allowed, we joke about it when I say I made bail when I was able to get out of my house, and I decided I needed to sort of go look at my computer again, and I needed a new computer because my video editing program had crashed at that point. So I buy a new computer, get a new video editing program, then I don't know how to work it. And so I see that GNAT here is able, they have classes, and I came down and took a class with Haas and another one on sort of how to use the cameras and whatnot. And so one thing led to another, and then I made a promo of what I thought I would like the show, and it's just slowly evolution. I mean, it's just evolving, and then I'm thinking about sort of all the topics that I'd like to talk about, and then the people who go with the topics. And so I'm beginning to sort of contact different people who would be the perfect person to talk about it, or, you know, and you know, like I have like elder travel is one of the issues, and I have a 95-year
that's a great issue.
Year-old friend who lives in Williamstown in a nursing home who walks with a walker, who flew to Europe by himself this summer.
You're kidding.
And I goodness. And I think that is just one of the bravest,
so cool.
bravest, most courageous things that anybody can do.
It can be done.
Yes,
it can be done.
And you know, he was successful with that, and I thought I would love to have him on this show talking about his experiences of traveling.
So you're learning how to use. I mean, these are different cameras than you've ever used before, correct?
Yes, much more complicated and sophisticated than mine. So I'm seat of the pants learning this. That's for sure, and I'm sure I'll make mistakes, but I'm trying to. You know, when you get a crew together, that's one thing. But,
now that's part of it. You have to get a crew, which entails...
finding them.
And like a camera person?
Yeah, a camera person. I'm going to do the editing, I believe. I'm going to try to. So, anyway, and like I'm doing a filming this Sunday that I'm going to be the filmer and sit down and be my, you know, I'm going to do it all, and we'll see how that happens. Because when I was working with you, I did a lot, and then I did a show myself called Local Green. I
remember that. I do remember that. And that was a great show.
I was behind the camera asking questions. I wasn't on camera very often, but you heard my voice.
Yeah.
And, you know, I was really doing it all then.
So you have had experience in this, but for people who haven't had experience, just coming down here, there are all kinds of classes and
I would really advise, if you're interested in getting involved, and you know, then take a course. That's really what's important, I think. You know, and then once you're here, they sort of kind of hone out your skills, and you know,
they take you under their wings.
That's right, and it is such a wonderful opportunity. I mean, you know, that we have a place to show our work, but also, you know, that the equipment's all here, and that.
And you can use it. You can use it.
You can use it, and I'm also, you know, sort of contemplating, should I buy new equipment, new camera equipment, and you know, then you get into how expensive it is, and you think, oh no,
I can use it.
Right, exactly.
It's wonderful. I can use what they have. I can
definitely
use what they have.
And so I am just so looking forward to hearing the stories of other elders and how they're sort of navigating the waters and all of these big decisions that get made. And one of the biggest that I hear the most about is, shall I move closer to my children? You know, that's
well, I think that's a very, I mean, even we're thinking about that.
I'm thinking about
everyone, you know, and especially as the grandchildren are growing and you want to be part of their lives, and you know, so that would be a very, very interesting topic.
I mean, that one is going to go on for a couple of shows, I can tell, because everybody is, and there's no right or wrong about it, I want to stress that. Everybody seems to make their own decisions ultimately. But what we don't want to have happen, and this comes from my being a medical social worker, is so many big decisions get made under crisis. You know, when all of a sudden grandma falls, or I fall, or, you know, and
it could be any one of us. I mean, we're all in that, going in that direction.
That's right. So
you know?
my other piece about wanting to do this show is to sort of gently open up these conversations so that people are not so scared of them.
Exactly.
And you know, and the other piece that I learned from Alvin is that, you know, the medical profession really wants us to stay safe. So safe means, you know, they don't want you to fall. They want you to be in a house that then gives rise to, oh yeah, go to the, you know, assisted living, or, you know, and that is not always the best quality of life for someone.
Exactly. It's so personal.
It's so personal.
And I think all of us want to be as independent as possible.
Absolutely.
You know, we don't want to be dependent on other people, and we don't want to be a burden.
That's right.
Which is something else. And I think sharing, I think one of the beautiful things, when you said just being able to get on the phone and talk to somebody and say something, but for you to be able to share all of this with our viewers.
The other thing you have to remember, you know, when you say you don't want to be a burden to anyone, often remaining active, though, is is the way we don't have to become a burden. You know, if we're out there elder exercise is another big one I'm going to be dealing with.
That'd be a great one.
But, you know, if we're exercising, if Alvin is, you know, my husband was still going up and down stairs right before he fell, and you know, he was still exercising all of those muscles, keeping that part strong, and, you know, although it was a little precarious, that's what he wanted to do. That's what he wanted to do.
Well, that kept him going.
That's,
that kept him going, and you can't take that away from people.
That's right.
You know, I think that's and a lot of times that's when they start going downhill.
Right. Another one of the topics I will deal with is self-care, and that is huge. And I think that we, you know, it's so easy for us
to used to be caregivers.
That's right, taking care of everybody else, and you know, to really take time out and say, I think I need a nap.
Sure.
You know, I need some quiet after being in this excited atmosphere around my grandkids for a while.
I can just go away and lie down and have a few moments to myself, or read, or do whatever.
And
you know?
we are not trained to do that.
No. And we also don't have to be perfect.
Absolutely,
no.
Accepting our imperfections.
Oh, just loving us as we are. Loving ourselves as we are. Oh, Annie,
Yeah.
you are going to have the very best show. It's going to be so much fun. I can't wait to see it.
Well, thank you so much.
I just can't wait. I am so thrilled to be here with you.
Terrific,
to share this with you. You
Thank
are such
you
a dear
so much
and
for having me.
Such a dear friend. And for those of you out there, look for the next chapter. Annie Schlessinger is going to be absolutely fabulous, and you're just going to so enjoy it. And until next time, let's talk.